Hi, my name's Richard Norton, co-founder of Bristol creative technology startup Tiny Joan. We help pioneering brands create standout ideas, craft experiences, and step confidently into new media and technology. The eagle-eyed amongst you will have noticed that I'm holding an electric guitar. You are correct. That's because we're going to talk about Jimi Hendrix. We're going to think about the connection between his ability as a transformational force in rock and roll and your ability to be more innovative in terms of culture and technology and marketing and advertising. So I invite you to be more Jimi. Jimi Hendrix was a pioneer and innovator of the electric guitar. The thing is, he wasn't the first person to use an electric guitar, but he was an individual who literally came out of nowhere and played it and used it in very different ways to everyone else. The legacy of his playing is it's gone on to basically influence every strand of rock and roll ever since. That, ladies and gentlemen, is innovation. So let me demonstrate for contextual purposes what I mean. Otherwise, it seems rather pointless me having an electric guitar. Here's a trick. A chord, in fact. There's nobody else, as far as I'm aware, in the 70 years of rock and roll who's had a chord named after them. But this is the Hendrix chord. So the thing about Hendrix using that chord is that he placed it into a lot of his material. You heard it in Purple Haze, Foxy Lady, Crosstown Traffic, number of songs. So it became synonymous to sound, but it also became very influential. If I just make those notes again. It's kind of bluesy and it's jazzy and it's rocky. It's all these things. It's like it's almost like a mashup of many styles in one place. He also did a lot of interesting things with feedback, with distortion, the way he strung his guitar, technique with the thumb over the top. All these things kind of led to the blend of that defined the Hendrix sound and then went to be so influential all the way up to modern day music. That, ladies and gentlemen, is innovation. So what has this got to do with you? Well, my starting point is to quote the American science fiction writer Theodore Sturgeon, who famously cited that 90% of everything is crap. Now, of course, he wasn't talking about everything himself. He was referring to science fiction writing or people's perceptions of it. But quite recently, 2013, an American philosopher called Daniel Dennett took Theodore Sturgeon's idea and used it as a tool for critical thinking, and hence why Sturgeon's law was born and this idea of 90% of everything being crap came into existence. And when I mean everything, I mean everything. Guitar playing, cars, cheese boards, movies, marketing. 90% of everything is crap. So your task in whatever you do is to avoid being in the 90%. Everybody wants to be in the 10%, don't they? You want to be uncrap. And the way to do that is through innovating. How easy is innovation? Well, I would contest it's much easier than perhaps it seems. It's more to do with kind of mindset and attitude. This is what it's about when I talk about finding your inner Jimi. Advertising guru Bill Bernbach, who in himself was the kind of Jimi Hendrix of advertising, one of the original madmen, has a very famous quote where he says, if your advertising doesn't get noticed, everything else is academic. And this is a really important principle, the idea of getting yourself noticed. And the way to do that is to stand out. And the way to stand out is to think about the things that you can affect and apply innovation to them. Innovation is a journey. You don't innovate and come to a full stop. It continually changes. You have to always be on top of these things. You also have to have the right mindset. You have to push against open doors to explore rather than closing them. Think about meetings you sit in where ideas are thrown around the table and people say, I think this, I think that. Well, that's okay to have an opinion, but sometimes opinions close down innovation. Innovation can be quite scary at times because it doesn't come from the center. It comes from over here. It's an outlying thing. So if you come across new ideas and new ways of thinking that you feel uncomfortable with, that's probably a good thing because it suggests a way of doing things that's different and interesting and worth exploring. Do you think Jimi Hendrix was gripped with fear when he set his guitar on fire at the Monterey Rock Festival? Probably not. But fear is an obstacle to get over. It often very much shuts down the kind of things you want to explore. And it's this notion of mindset. It's not a case of thinking, what if it goes wrong? It's much better to flip it and think, what if it goes right? That's a way, a fast path, as it were, to finding your inner Jimmy. So, in the world I inhabit, there's all kinds of interesting emerging technologies that we look at all the time and see if they can be used. Ultimately, it's not about using technology for the sake of it, it's about using technology to sort people's problems and their challenges, whatever they are. That's where it becomes really, really useful and really, really effective. It's easy to think that emerging technologies are expensive or they're prohibitive, only the preserve of big brands, big businesses, big organizations with big fat meaty budgets. But to be honest, the truth is the opposite. It's actually very democratized technology that businesses of any size can use. So, I think of examples that we've done where we've worked in creative AI and we helped make the world's first AI gin. That was only a small distillery who were able to punch above the weight because of that. The same goes with augmented reality technology. It sounds very clever, but you can be the smallest pizzeria in the world and you could do a campaign that puts you on the map. The thing is not to be fearful of it. The thing is to embrace it. So I think there are 3 rules to being more Jimmy. 1 is to be more courageous. 2 is to start small and test what works. 3 is to check out technology and find out what works. Immerse yourself in it. So let's consider being courageous. It isn't about looking at what your competitors are doing and trying to replicate it or do it a little bit better. You can do that, but that's what everybody else does. If you want to stand out, if you want to be more Jimmy, you've got to zig to their zag. You've got to reach out and do something very different. That's where bold thinkers go. So sometimes you should look at technology, you should look at platforms in marketing, for example, with an open mind. You hear things in meetings, you talk to clients and you say, I think TikTok would work really well for you. And you see their faces. They go, TikTok, isn't that for kids dancing on videos? And you go, well, no, it isn't actually. You should, like Jimmy, open your mind. Take the Uffizi Gallery in Florence. It's been showing art for nearly 400 years. And yet recently they've taken a TikTok and you know what? They're smashing it. Number 2, start small and test. What I'm saying here is you shouldn't risk everything. You shouldn't put all your chips on one number or on one horse. What you should do is try things on a small scale and see if they work. You learn from everything. You learn from your successes. You learn from your failures. Just do the stuff on a small scale. It doesn't mean a lot of spend and it makes things happen. And then from there, you can expand. 3, check out the tech. Every day, technology changes. It's like an exponential curve of change. But you've got to get in it and you've got to get your hands dirty and you've got to see what works. I'm not saying dig super deep, but at least have a basic understanding of what's out there and how it can help you solve your challenge. There's a wonderful quote by American marketing professor Scott Galloway from his book, The Algebra of Happiness. It goes something like this: nothing wonderful will ever happen in your life if you don't take a risk. So I implore you to take a risk. It's time to excuse yourself, to touch the sky and be more Jimmy.